Well, James, I appreciate you being with me here on the Social Entrepreneurship and Innovation podcast. And for folks who are unfamiliar, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing with us a little bit as to what it is that you do?
Of course. Hello, everyone. And Corey, thank you guys for having me. My name is James Leitner. I am the founder and executive director of MissionCleanWater, which is a nonprofit organization working to provide clean drinking water and sanitation to underserved communities, more or less around the world. We'll definitely talk more about that. But then also, I use my experiences as an endurance runner as a vice for fundraising for our organization.
Hmm. And so, I mean, I'd love to start right there, how this overlap first came to be. So I'd be curious to hear a bit more about the origins of Mission Clean Water and why is it connecting to so much running?
No, definitely. Great question. At least for my journey and kind of where it started, focused around water. I mean, like I've lived and grown up in, suburban New Jersey, very close to New York City my entire life. And so the idea and thought of water as a issue really never came to me because it's just so prevalent everywhere you go, at least for right around me in the tri-state area. And so when I learned that water was a global issue, it more or less, shocked me. And it was just 2010. And I learned that, 1 billion people in the world didn't have access to clean water. And just that's a huge number. And it kind of blew me away. But then also the fact that, women and children have to walk every single day to try and obtain and find water and then carry the 5 gallons or 45 pounds back. Just, it shocked me. I was like, this I don't understand like how this is occurring and going on. And so, before I started doing the endurance fundraisers, just kind of really began the educational aspects of me learning everything that I can. And just through my experiences as an endurance runner, I really wanted to showcase, what children go through every day. And so that kind of began, the natural aspects of showcasing their walks through my different, journeys as a fundraiser pretty much.
And so this exercise in learning everything you could about the issue, I'm interested to hear more about that. Like what did that specifically look like? And like, what did you start to uncover? Because I think we kind of have this vague familiarity, especially with folks who are listening to the show, that some people don't have access to clean water, immediately in their communities. But what's the great kind of scope that you started to get a grasp of as it relates to this issue?
No, of course. So like when I learned about water as an issue, this was in 2010 when I was in high school. And so once I kind of discovered this moment, really just kind of began the moment where I was just trying to research and learn everything that I possibly could. Googling and researching water as an issue, sanitation as an issue, because they're so closely related, and trying to find organizations, I guess, in my area that are currently very active in the water crisis, as it's called. And so that kind of began the opportunity for me to volunteer, talk to these different people, and just learn kind of hands-on. And instead of just with pictures and videos, what their experience have been trying to aid and help these different communities and people all around the world. When I went to University of Delaware in 2011, I graduated in 2015, I just kind of tailored my career to learn about water issues across the world and like water resource management pretty much. And, I realized that my university had professors that have done amazing things with, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grants, all this crazy work in their engineering department and everything. And I realized to myself, like, why am I not talking to these professors? I'm not going to have a class with them, but they just have such a crazy resume of resources and past experiences that I necessarily really just wanted to learn more about and try and find ways to become more hands-on. And more or less what sprouted from there was me kind of working as a small little consultant for different nonprofit organizations to begin aiding and helping them develop their own, water projects for different communities. And that's kind of where it all really, began afterwards.
And so what did you start to understand about the implications of these communities, rural communities, not having that immediate access to clean water?
Sure. I mean, like when there isn't like an immediate access, it's, it's very confusing to see, mainly because like you realize that all these people that living in this specific community, this specific area, across the world, there's just no communal clean water source for them to use. Most of these areas don't have like water spigots at their house that are dry, just there's nowhere available for them to get water.
Mm.
And what that more or less ends up looking like is someone in that family, typically the mom or one of the children, usually girls, have to walk and just go somewhere and try and find water. Usually they always know where to go, but the water that they collect is extremely dirty and just really isn't very, brown, has dead bugs and animals in it. Animals are using it to drink as well. And you just look at it and you realize like this would make anyone immediately sick. And once you kind of see a clean water source that's, provided and being kind of maintained by the community, you begin to see kind of the overall change that ends up happening where children and women don't have to walk very far distances to collect water. They now have more available time to go to school or to work and care for their families. There's more opportunity for them to, help out at home, or more opportunity to be involved within their community. And you kind of just see the new available return within the community themselves.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess, so the gap is an access issue, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so what needs to happen, and maybe this can start to speak as to what is y'all's approach with Mission Clean Water. What is missing between the access and where many of these communities are right now?
Sure. So like a lot kind of has to go on to really provide and create that access. And you see many organizations having many different approaches. And, typically what you end up seeing are two involvements or two different sides of it, which is kind of the technical aspects of providing clean water, because there's many different solutions, such as, providing groundwater, rainwater, surface water, different things like that. Then there's also the community engagement side. And, from our, which is kind of like working with the community, being very hands-on and really trying to create those steps and milestones to have a lifelong sustainable clean water source. And, from what we've learned kind of here at Mission Clean Water, and what I've seen just through my previous experiences is that, people can create and develop beautifully technical projects with amazing engineering teams and such, but at the community level, if people aren't aware of how to maintain and take care of it, if something breaks and no one knows how to fix it, then what ends up happening is that previous project just turns into a landmark, like a noticeable thing for the communities to just kind of see and look at. Like, we used to get water from there, but now we're back to our old clean water sources, or our old dirty water sources. So at least here at Mission Clean Water, we just try and really develop and approach at the community level to see long-term development and growth.
And so maybe taking it back to the beginning, I'm sorry if I'm prodding you on details too much here, but
no, ask away.
How are y'all identifying particular projects that you're going to start raising funds for and setting plans for?
Sure, no, of course. So at least when we first created Mission Clean Water, we didn't necessarily have a location. As our mission shows, we're not like subjected to a specific geographical location. But what ended up happening, our organization was getting much wider spread attention, and once or twice or three times a week, we would get messages from people all around the world and, pretty much all the continents besides Antarctica, asking for some form of clean water assistance, as well as hygiene assistance, sanitation assistance. And we were fortunate enough to have this one gentleman, Andrew, contact us, who's now our community organizer and planner, that was originally, he's from Uganda and originally from Uganda, and he was the one person that was able to just provide us the most information. And next plausible step for us as an organization was to actually go to Uganda, meet him, and kind of see where he wanted assistance and how we could kind of develop together. When we were actually in Uganda and kind of visiting these different communities he has highlighted, what we were interested in learning about was what different aspects and effects this community has revolved around water. What are their other highlighted issues? Because we want to make sure water is their biggest, dilemma or challenge, as well as we kind of looked at the wet and the dry season, because, what tends to happen, at least in Uganda, is that they have, just 2 seasons, and during the dry season, it won't rain for like 5 or 6 months. And so we decided that some of the first communities we would work with during the dry season, more or less all their resources go dry. So they're in the most need compared to other communities that might have still some locations, but still, dirty water sources.
Mm. And so you get on the ground there, you talk with the community, and you get a pretty clear scope of what actually might be needed to complete this potential project. Is that right?
Sure. No, that's a very good way of putting it, but it does take time to kind of identify and learn as much as you can. When we visit these different communities or these different locations, we're spending up to, more than a week just talking and meeting with people, because communities are very big and people, everyone has their own specific issues. We want to make sure that we are able to just talk to the different men that live in the community, as their own little demographic. We want to make sure we talk to the women in the communities separately too, because they're more outspoken when away from, the men pretty much. We want to make sure we can talk to some of the children, just kind of hear their perspectives. And children have a really interesting perspective because, they've grown up thinking that this is what their water looks like. They don't realize that it could be different and much healthier. So that was something that was always a kind of flabbergasted me. We talked to different, religious, preachers or icons in the area, because these areas predominantly are very Christian and very Muslim. So we want to make sure that we can get everyone's kind of perspective within the community, not just from leaders, to kind of hear what their different issues are. And a lot of it does, focus around water, but people will also share with you, issues with, adult literacy, education, and all these different things. And we want to just try and learn that, what can a clean water source address and really help benefit, different general communities.
Mm. And so maybe one question before we get to your unique fundraising tactics. I am wondering what James, do you feel like you've understood or that you understand now about this issue of accessible clean water that you didn't understand when originally starting Mission Clean Water? Like, what are some new learnings that you have with you today, a greater understanding of this issue as a whole that you first didn't have when starting the organization?
That's a really good question. There's only so much that books and previous people's experiences and stories can tell you. And you definitely do learn a lot more on the ground. And, really what I have learned is, at times to just sit back and listen, because the people in these communities, even though they don't have like a very formal, like public education, I guess you can say, they're extremely smart and knowledgeable people. And, they spend all their time at their land taking care of it. So they understand so much of how the water moves and flows within their community. They, fully understand when it's too long of a dry season, too long of a wet season. Their knowledge and ability to work with their own community is extremely impressive. So at many times when we're trying to help them develop ways of maintaining and taking care of their different water systems, or, ways of trying to, motivate their community members to get involved and volunteer their time or resources, we just learn to kind of sometimes sit back and listen and hear the different ideas they've had, because they've created some better ideas than we've ever thought of, just from our, moments of us kind of just listening to see how the conversation goes and develops. A good example is that in all of our clean water projects and within the communities, they have their own, structured system to maintain those projects through a water user committee. And all these committees do collect small fees because water really is a utility. But one thing the community members started doing was they saw that all these funds are being collected to maintain and take care of these projects, really without us knowing. They developed their own micro loan system and were giving out, through the water user fee collection, loans to different community members that have all been paid back to develop new economic sources for them, like, creating, buying machines to better grind rice and different materials. They decided on their own to begin selling water to other communities and to the government during heavy drought seasons. I've been, blown away, and these are ideas I and my team never thought of, but they have just kind of thought of it themselves and approved it themselves as their own entity and community. So it's just been kind of wonderful to see, how smart and motivated they are once they realize the potential that they have.
Mm. And so then let's talk about some of these unique fundraising events that you've held, starting with the very first, which didn't seem to be, or what I understand, it wasn't necessarily Mission Clean Water project, your first cross-country walk, right? That was just some sort of individualized
Yeah, well, so that actually wasn't the very first thing that I did. Really, so everything from the cross-country trip and before that was just kind of like my way of still trying to actively be involved in the international water community. And I've always been one to be very, I'm me as a person. I'm not from these countries. I'm not from some of these continents, and I'm not part of this community. So it is very important from my angle to really tell a good ethical story with, making sure all children and women and men in our pictures and things have full consent to be involved. I don't want to show people in raggedy clothes or in very dirty, hanging out in the dirt, because I do that myself. I want to show how beautiful some of the communities are we work with. So instead of showing kind of the empathy route through their lives, I kind of show it through the fundraisers that I do, which symbolizes, carrying water and such. So the very first thing that I did to kind of show this journey of water was completing a marathon a month for a year while carrying 45 pounds of water or 5 gallons of water over, more or less 26.2 miles to just show what women and children have to go through every single day. That was fun.
And those in all different locations all over the country?
Yeah, so I was living in West Virginia at the time in a very rural location. So I more or less just had to pick whatever was the closest marathon. If that meant having to drive 8 hours, so be it. And this was every month. So sometimes it was 100 degrees, sometimes it was snowing, sometimes it was trail marathons or the Morgantown Marathon that had lots of hills. So just kind of had to do what was ever closest. But, ultimately the completion of these races wasn't for myself. It was to raise funds for other people. So it all felt very justified and worth it.
And then, so what particularly was being symbolized with this cross-country walk that you made? And then also, how long did that take?
Yeah, so I finished that last marathon in April. Then in May, 3 weeks afterwards, I left for this cross-country trip where the idea and focus was I wanted to walk how far a child walks in a year to find and get access to water. And so what I ended up doing was walking from New Jersey to Princeton, New Jersey to San Francisco, California, while pulling 10 gallons of water the entire way, because that's how much water a family really needs in a day for themselves. And so this total journey ended up took me 143 days to complete. But what that number kind of shows is that, that's how far a child walks in a year to get water. They are losing 143 days of the year just getting water for their family. And when there's 365 days in a year, that's quite a significant amount of time. And, to compare it to the U.S. education system, most schools have 180 days of school. That's, close to, more than 3/4 of the entire year. So it just kind of shows how much time is lost annually just because of trying to find and get water.
And so what was that experience like for you on the day-to-day? Like, what did that look like?
It was a lot. So like when you look at the entire journey as a whole, it feels very overwhelming because it is. But when you kind of break it into like a 1 week or 2 week time frame, you realize, okay, so today I'm walking along this specific path, which could be a road, could be a rail to trail, or could be just some rural area or location. I'm going to walk 18 miles today and make it into this town. once I make it into this town, I kind of have to figure out where I'll be sleeping. And then I'll wake up the next morning and walk 20 miles to the next town, just kind of this slow, process going forward. Kind of like driving on an interstate but now I have to stop at each of the exits because everything's a little too far and spread apart. So pretty much I would spend, the early mornings and the early afternoons walking every single day, just snacking and eating along the way and enjoying the small towns that I went through. Finding a place to sleep was the one thing I really couldn't plan in advance. So what I really had to do was when I reached certain towns, I would stop and, pause for a little bit to not be just a sweaty mess when approaching people, and try and just see different ways I can connect within the community. But a majority of the time I would usually call their town hall and they would link me with like the church or the fire department to try and help me find a place to sleep. And I'd say 90% of the time that always worked out.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and so what did you do to pass the time as you're walking, and maybe this can bring us into what you're working on right now?
So, passing the time, usually I would just kind of be able to, begin my walks, and after 3 hours kind of bore myself. You literally think about everything that there is possibly to think about yourself. You reflect about, moments. This is after college. This is 2 years after college. So I reflected about all the friends and people I've met in college, all of the random stories that I've had, all of the people that I've thought I've hurt and regret different moments, all the embarrassing moments. You just have so many times to kind of reflect on your previous life. But when I guess I kind of ran out of things to think about, more towards the end of the day, or maybe when I needed a little bit of a motivational booster, I would try and turn to just some of the music I really enjoy, as well as I really am a big fan of stand-up. And so I listen to a lot of stand-up while walking because it's funny, but it also kind of puts a smile on your face and gives you a little comical relief and just, exhausting yourself every single day.
And so, I mean, outside of just the background in endurance running, for one, what makes you, like, why do you think you are the type of person to set off on some sort of challenge like that? Because there's one thing to think like, that would be an interesting idea and maybe something that would help raise awareness around this cause, but that's not easy to be able to take off and do. Like, why do you think that you did and continue to
Yeah,
do what you're doing now?
yeah, I should stop. um,
Maybe.
yeah, no, it's not gonna happen. It's definitely a few things, and a few, good and a few bad things I would say that kind of continues to, cause these things to happen and to continue pushing forward. I mean, there's definitely, the marathons and, me being just a general open person to meeting new people and trying to experience new things has definitely opened up the avenue for more things like this to happen. I find joy and excitement out of, being able to try new things, training for new things like marathons or these different, random endurance events. And it just gives me the opportunity to learn and be involved in different communities. I'm also the kind of person that once an idea is kind of ingrained in my mind, I kind of think some of the stuff's very funny and, not plausible, but then I kind of think to myself, like, is it actually possibly done? Could this actually happen? And kind of begin to create the building blocks to see it actually happen. Like that marathon idea, carrying water. I think I laughed about that for like a few days and I was like, I think I can actually do this, and then just signed up for a marathon and so be it. But then also kind of on the opposite side of it, there are some of the, negative aspects of why I keep on doing this. And you might hear this a lot from some of your friends that have done like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or any like long distance hike. And that, once you do the very first thing, so for example, marathons for me, you are physically exhausting yourself, emotionally exhausting yourself, pushing yourself out of these crazy walls and getting these, natural highs to kind of keep yourself going. But once you finish it, then you're just kind of like, you have nothing to, push that limit again. So your choice is either to really just kind of, for a thru hiker's sense, assimilate back to normal life, which isn't kind of creating those moments anymore, or figure out what the next hardest thing is. And so to kind of avoid what's known as the trail depression, I always have kind of like the new idea or the new kind of planning process going into it of something that I think would be a fun thing to accomplish, to constantly kind of push the limits. So there's kind of the tendency of always going, one step harder as things kind of progress going forward.
Hmm. And so that started with one marathon a month for 12 months, and then
Yeah.
a coast-to-coast walk from East Coast to, you saw the Pacific Ocean, right? Is
Yes.
that, yeah?
Yeah.
And then
That was fun.
what are we doing now?
Um, so now there has been some smaller events before this, but it's all kind of felt like training to what is happening right now. So what's been happening is, at least for Mission Clean Water's sake, we are trying to fully fundraise in July a clean water project for an all-girls school in Uganda. And for me, myself, to kind of symbolize the walk that these girls are doing every single day, I have been running 30 miles a day for 30 days to raise or to reach our fundraising goal of 30K. Fun little ring to it. And so this has started in, my very first run was July 1st. We're recording this right now, it's July 22nd, so I'm pretty far into it. Everything's been feeling good and working well, but the kind of idea behind it is that, I've done a lot of these previous events, but until someone has clean water, they're going to have to walk every single day until it happens, similar to myself for these past 30 days, until they have a clean water source. And then once they also walk and collect water, they, now have to go to school or work. And I got to be honest, I am exhausted every single day after these. And, we're talking a few hours after my run today, and I could fall asleep at any time after 4 p.m. now.
Man, so I am wondering, what is what are the results of these? I mean, obviously it's
Yeah,
you're shooting for a particular fundraising goal,
sure.
and I hope you're on track to hit it. And
Yeah, we are. It's been great.
that's exceptional. So, I mean, I'd be interested to know, and I'm sure others
Yeah.
listening in, potential nonprofit leaders themselves, I may suggest with my expertise, maybe a digital marketing campaign, as an example.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm curious, there's something here in the principles or what you're extracting of just, the uniqueness in which you're approaching fundraising.
Yeah.
Like what do you think someone listening themselves who may not be involved with clean water, as an example, maybe some sort
Hmm.
of different issue or cause, but interested in the tactics and strategies of successful fundraising?
Yeah.
What are you learning about these events, and how is that kind
Sure.
of dictating an overall fundraising strategy for Mission Clean Water?
Definitely. So I think from this, from all the different fundraisers that I've done, I'm learning a lot about community engagement. So that's kind of the community around me and how to get them involved in these runs and these fundraisers that I'm doing. How to approach it at a peer-to-peer fundraising level, because, I'm running all the time. So I'm relying on my ability to share a story digitally through social media as a means of seeking and gaining donations. And I'm also learning a lot about, what are the steps being taken to have, a fundraiser that can last multiple days or really be a single day. And I've learned a lot, just about general donors' behavior in events like these. And like if someone wants to complete a specific run for charity or just kind of approach their fundraising tactics about what I've learned through endurance running, I think a lot of it kind of stems around you being very transparent with your donors and not being afraid to share the story. Don't be afraid to share the, very successful moments that you've had. Don't be afraid to share the very sad and hard moments that you've had, because, people love seeing me succeed. And like, for example, we were very successful in raising donations. Some of the days I was like, today was great. I had no issues. It was wonderful. But then we also got a lot of donations when I was like, I cried today. A bee chased me, and here's a picture of my feet with all the blisters on them. People enjoy seeing kind of the challenging journeys that you have, as well as one big moment to really highlight is don't be afraid to share some of the small accomplishments that lead to your big goal. for me doing a multi-day event, it's very easy for me to share milestones. So like, I'm 25% the way there, I'm 50% the way there. That just gets people really excited to listen, hear the story, and it really shows who is like just regularly involved in kind of hearing how things are going. So there's been some of the things that I've learned, and then just truly trying to keep the community engaged on what's happening every single day through pictures people have taken of myself that have ran with me, and just kind of show it through as many different lenses as possible.
Hmm. All right, James. Well, I really appreciate your time. Before we wrap up, would you mind if I hit you with a couple rapid fire questions?
Yeah, go for it. I love these.
All right. So first, maybe in your scenario, it's audiobooks, but have there been any books that you've read recently, or maybe some books that you come back to that you'd really like to recommend to others?
Oh my goodness. When running, I haven't been listening to too many podcasts or too many audiobooks, but I have listened to a lot of audiobooks. I can't remember the names in particular, but there's been a bunch of books created by other ultra endurance runners that I really enjoyed, and I can like include in the description these books and their names, but the names can always just scrape me. It's always something kind of inspirational. It's not if you don't have to like endurance running to get into it. Just hearing kind of the stories of the failures and accomplishments that they've had to get to where they are is phenomenal. It always reminds me of that picture where you see like three guys on the podium for first, second, and third, and like the pyramid under showing like the actual battle that took them to like kind of get to that point. It just kind of shows, through adversity and through challenges, there's no reason to quit.
So you send me a few titles in an email after this chat. We'll have it in the show notes.
Definitely. Oh, 100%.
Next one, are there any particular organizations or companies in the space of social impact or sustainable business that have inspired you recently, or maybe inspired you to do what it is that you're doing?
Sure. So I'm going to say there are two organizations in particular. One organization that's also kind of in my world of water and sanitation, that was developed and created by a wonderful lady named Sarah Evans. That's been kind of a role model for me, and they've worked as a mentor for me. As an organization out of Austin, Texas called Well Aware. And they have just really developed strong models for sustainable clean water and sanitation development. And I think they've been around for about 10 years now, and are definitely a role model in the water world, as well as have just shown great success and have been kind of idols to me. And then another one is the Delaware Food Co-op. So it's an organization out of Newark, Delaware, focused around University of Delaware, just a group of individuals that really enjoy healthy eating. So they regularly visit farms, volunteer at those farms, and are more or less paid in vegetables and crops for them to cook themselves, as well as to show communities that are involved or are stuck in kind of food deserts, how they can have better and proper nutrition through these vegetables and fruits and stuff.
Excellent. And then the next one, since you are an endurance runner, do you have some loyalties to what shoes you wear?
I really enjoy the New Balance 880s shoes. Now, everyone is going to be different. Everyone's going to love their own shoes. And me saying this, I don't necessarily want you to go and purchase the shoes. I want you to visit a professional running store and get fitted for a shoe, because they will get you the best pair for you. I have these shoes because I typically have, wide feet, so they fit very well when running very far. And they have just always kind of been very comfortable for me in the past. That being said, I've used tons of other shoes, and I recommend everyone to kind of get, experience different shoes for them. But also, don't be afraid to spend the money, because you are walking all the time.
Kind of a diplomatic answer there, not taking a hard position.
I'm neutral.
Well, good advice there, but very last question. What's a piece of advice for the aspiring impact-driven entrepreneur, social entrepreneur who perhaps has a cause or potential impact that they want to make? And
sure. Usually the first thing I always tell people is that do not be afraid to contact me. Even if your idea does not focus around water, does not focus around the international world, is something maybe not even, nonprofit focused, do not be afraid to contact me. And if I have the connections to help you out, just please reach out, because I love seeing people grow the interest that they have. The one thing I do want to say is that do not be afraid to accept different challenges. At times, things are going to be hard and you might feel and seem hopeless, but there are people out there that love seeing you develop and grow your passion. So just be open with them, share ideas with people, and you'll easily get over those random bumps in the roads, because there are going to be some.
Good advice. All right, James, any final places to direct folks? I know the 30 miles a day for 30 days will be over when this episode is publishing, as I'm catching you in day 22. But where else
No
should
worries.
folks go to keep up with Mission Clean Water and potentially get involved?
Sure, definitely. So the best resource to learn more about Mission Clean Water is to visit our website, which is just simply missioncleanwater.org. From there, you'll be able to learn about the work that we do, more about the global water issues happening all around the world, as well as if you go to our Contact Us page, I get those messages directly. So just feel free to reach out to me anytime and we can, personally talk. But other than that, I appreciate you guys listening to this.
Perfect. All right, we'll have everything linked up at our show notes at growensemble.com. Thanks, James.
All right, awesome. Of course, thank you for having me.